Well, I've put the wagon floor aside to really set hard while I do the next job, and this is a really fiddly little tricky job, this next bit. What we've got to do is, these are the wagon sides, this is the side which you see, this is the inside. What we have to do is we have to drop the axle bearings into these holes, or 4 of them, and position them, push them in and position them so that the wheels will sit on those axle bearings, the axle of the wheel, and will turn nice and freely. So I'm going to get those out of the bag now, one at a time. I've got a little bit of blue tack next to it here, which I can sort of put them in, because you do not want to be dropping these on the floor and trying to find them. They are absolutely minute. So let's start with that. Well, the instructions suggest using a wetted finger, so let's try that. First thing is to get it the right way up and simply drop it into the hole. Oh, success. Now we'll need something like a scriber or something with a pointed end to push that home. You can use one of your drill bits or something like that. So I'm just going to push that home and get it square. Well, what I've done is I've used a piece of blue tack to secure this, because every time you try and manipulate this it moves around and pops out, and I've attached a micro drill bit into my hand drill, and I've just attached it with the drill head inside, and I'm using the shaft of the micro drill bit to engage this in, so I'll get on with that. Get it in nice and square and as deep as you can, and if it is in uneven, you can always push one of the edges to get it flat. That's the first one done. I'll get on with the others. So there are all 4 axle bearings in place. Quite a tricky little job, fiddly, but I managed to get them in without them disappearing off onto the floor somewhere. Obviously make sure you get these the right way around. They're a kind of cup shape, and you want the cone to be inside, so the shaft of the axle can go in here. Now we've done that, we can now glue these sides to the side of the wagon body, and they simply butt up to these side blocks like so, like so, and then they're glued, and it's very important when we do it that we make sure that the axle bearings are obviously opposite each other, so the axles will sit in nicely, and that's what the side of the wagon will look like. Just get it in focus once it's glued together. So I'll just get on with that. So I've glued the first side. I flipped the wagon over and attached it to the mat with a little bit of blue tack to keep it in position, and I've just put a tiny dab of glue along the side there. I'm just waiting for that to set off. I will need to flip it and check for gaps. You are sometimes liable to find tiny gaps where these curves don't quite match, but you can do something about that once you've the main thing is to get it on there pretty square and get it in the right position relative to the wagon floor, so it's in the center, forward and back. You don't want it too close to one end or too close to the other end, because then obviously the wheels won't be in the correct position in relation to the coupler pockets. So let's just let that get a little bit harder, and then we'll just check it over. Okay, so both the sides are now on. They weren't a brilliant fit, slight difference in angles of these up sweeps, but that should hopefully all be hidden when it's painted. Also just make sure they're square along the line there. Okay, so put that aside to get really hard and dry. Next job is we're going to look at the buffer beams. Okay, probably a little bit too much magnification there, but first thing we're going to do is before we fit them, and they fit on the ends of the van bodies here, I'm just going to check that the buffers will go in to the depth they need to go in, and that will probably involve slightly opening these up with a micro drill. So I'm just going to start looking at that. So with a very small drill bit, I'm just opening these up a little bit so that the buffers will slide in nice and easy. I just need to apologise, unfortunately it's suddenly gone incredibly dark outside. I think we might be in for a thunderstorm, so apologies that the picture is so dark. Okay, just have another check with the buffers to see if that's an improvement. Well, that's how you want them to look once you've opened them up. They need to go in about 1mm, but we're not gluing them at the moment. At the moment we're just making sure these are opened out and that the buffers will fit and sink to that depth. I'll just get on and do the other buffer beam. So both the buffer beams are now prepared, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to glue them to the wagon floor. And they sit at the end here, underneath these little protrusions, like so, and we'll just have to squeeze them in between the bottom of the wagon and the coupler, like so. And there is the buffer beam simply pushed into position. I'll now square it up and then glue it. So a tiny dab of glue behind here. And then just manipulate it into position. You can use these protrusions on the top just as a guide to line it left to right, and then you also need to check from the side that it's sitting square. That looks pretty good. Just hold that there for a second or two while it just dries. Yep, pretty good. Happy with that. Let's do the other one. Okay, both the buffer beams are now on, and now we can fit the buffers. We're going to recheck that they go in the right depth. Put them in, and about 1mm of protrusion between the buffer housing and the buffer head. So about 1mm of the buffer shaft, and then glue in place. That's pretty straightforward, so I'm going to get on and do that. Well, there you have it. I've just simply test fitted the buffers in to check the depths. They look pretty good. Yep, good even lengths, about the right amount protruding. Check also that they're level. That looks pretty good. And once you're happy, I could come down a little bit. Just a tiny dab of glue on each one to hold them. So they're drying. Next job is going to be these side pieces, which are going to glue here to give a little lip on the side of the wagon. And there's one for each side. You need to check the shape first of all, and they'll sit in a level with the side. I'll just get on with those. Now these curb rails sit on top of these triangular supports that run along the bottom. So that gives you a nice sort of guide, and it will also hide any slight gaps between the wagon side and the floor of the wagon, which are caused by them not being exactly the same shape. So this will hide a multitude of sins there by sitting on those triangular supports. So I'm just going to double check the look of these, make sure there's no bits I need to just trim off and clean up, and then I'll get on with doing that. There's the first one in place. and it was pretty easy to do. I just ran and I put a tiny spot of glue on the back side, and then used the metal tip of straw type thing on the top of this to spread it along here, and then fitted it, and it's got on really nicely. I just need to have a look at both ends to make sure that it's nice and even. Okay, now to do the other side. So the second one is done, and I'm just holding it while it sets off a little bit. I will probably just need to tighten up the very ends where there might not be as much glue underneath, just to get that to hold in. That's starting to look pretty good, and as I say, it's hiding any tiny gaps there were between the wagon floor and the sides. Okay, well, we're starting to get there, and you'll see now that these buffer beams are on, how these couplers won't now go up, and that's why you would have had to modify them by either cutting a section out of the buffer beam or by cutting a piece out of the shank of the buffer so it would raise. But I'm not too concerned about that at the moment. There's a few shiny spots, excuse me, shiny spots where obviously little leaks of glue and stuff like that, but that will all be hidden once we get painting on it. But for the moment, next thing we're going to do, we've got two more things we can do. We can add the brake levers and vac pipe. Now, the thing with the brake levers is as they come out off the sprues here, they're a bit thick to look really prototypical. So it's recommended in the instructions that you thin them down a bit, and they say you should use a knife. I'm going to do it actually on a block, just thin down the thickness of this, and it's going to go, excuse me, it's going to go here in the corner, and we might need to make a small adjustment to the raised detail here to let it to enable it to sit back and look realistic. So first thing I'm going to do is take this off the sprue and give it a thin out. So what I'm doing here is I'm just test fitting where the brake levers have to go on the wagon ends, and because they have to sit back, you have to remove some of the raised detail on the wagon end. So I've just filed a bit away, and now I'm just checking that I've got it the right position. Yeah, that's fine. I just need to file it away a bit more, so I'll get on with that. Well, there it is. I've filed away a piece, and because you have to file away half of this piece here, it kind of makes a step that the brake lever will sit on, and that works quite well. So that's now just gone off. Just adjust that up a tiny bit and just hold it. Okay, just going to wait for that to set hard and do the other one. Okay, second brake lever attached, and we're starting to near the end of this project. Question now is vac pipes.